very excited to start here by talking about the youngest person on this tribe and one of the youngest people in the cast. That's another interesting thing about sort of like the cast divisions this season is that they did do a pretty good job, I think, of sort of allocating, dividing by age, relatively speaking, whether it be like dividing up the older members of the cast and the younger members as well. We were talking about Cassidy Clark.
Okay. Mike, what do we know about Cassidy Clark?
So Cassidy is a fashion designer. She is a Texas native. She is a recent college graduate. She fashions herself quite literally the creative type. And
Mm-hmm.
she is, I believe, 26 years old, which still is not like hugely young, but still, again, comparatively to a lot of this other cast, which firmly finds themselves like within the realm of the 30s. Maybe it's the look as well. We talked about her pick, by the way. Speaking of look, on her in our first impressions show, probably has one of the best served looks in Survivor when it comes to these cast photos. And I would imagine out there on the island, she is gonna put some of our greatest fashionistas to shame. Rob, you and I
Oh,
talked with Jacob
really?
Jones, and I went up that
Yes.
list, right, about like Survivor shirts. I feel like give her a hatchet and like she'd be able to make a lot of outfits work for her tribe.
Do you want to give her some sort of like Pearl Island style Survivor sewing machine?
I mean, I want to do that every season just to see. Like, I want
Oh my
Project Birthday to
God.
always happen. Yeah, every Cassidy, I love the sarong that you made. I do think that I think it's fun. I think we should do it each and every season because I want to do like almost a challenge within a challenge, a game within a game. You will of
Ah,
who can make the best outfits. We talk about providers at camp, and usually that comes down to building fires, catching fish. We don't speak a lot about quality of life. It gets cold out there. If
mm-hmm.
Cassidy is able to construct a cardigan to give some of her, colder tribe members, I think
I
that
mean,
that's something
cardigan's a
that could
lot of
actually.
work. That's a lot of knitting.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if there's one person that could do it, it could be someone
Does
who
she
maybe.
knit?
I mean, I would imagine she does that. Maybe it's wrong for me to assume. I'm trying to think, like, have we really had a designer since Brett Klauser back in Survivor Samoa?
We'll go back and check the archives. If not, Twitter will let us know.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, we certainly had wannabe designers and Brad Culpepper both in interior decorating as well as his own fashion sense. But I don't
Yeah.
know when it comes to like your occupation. We had a designer in quite some time, so Cassidy is bringing it back.
Okay. All right, Mike. Anything else we want to set up before we hear from Cassidy herself?
So if you happen to chance upon this without listening to our Vessi Tribe preview, just to quickly set up how this is going to work, I had the ability to ask questions that Rob and I collaborated on to the contestants days before they went out to play. Now, of course, they were asked by producers. The answers were recorded. I did a little bit of audio magic and recorded the questions and spliced them in here to make it seem like I was the one asking the questions. But we're going to play our way through the audio interviews on the podcast, stop down on occasion, talk them through. We'll also bring in stuff from her bio, from her 1-minute video that have now been making the rounds on social media. So we're going to try to use this as an opportunity to really get a deeper dive into these players and try to figure out, particularly within the configuration of this starting tribe, since we know they're gonna spend the entire pre-merge within these tribes, how it's going to shape out.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead, Mike. What is our safe word today to stop the recording?
Okay, so if we're going with the Survivor 42 silly phrases, we already did Bunny Rabbit in the mailbox mailbag. We have there is such grace in the game of soccer, it makes me cry. And then we also have the whole I have skin, potatoes have skin, am I a potato? So you
Yeah.
picked your poison here.
I'm feeling potato today.
All right, so we'll say potato. Listen, we just got off of a 3-day weekend where some of us were feeling probably as lazy as a potato, like a couch potato, perhaps. And so
Yeah,
I
I
don't
ate
think
a lot of potatoes. Yeah.
I don't think lazy as a potato is even any sort of idiom.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we will stop in with anything we need to add with the word potato. All right. Without further ado, here is Cassidy Clark.
Start off, tell us about yourself. Give us your name, age, and occupation.
My name is Cassidy Clark. I am 26 years old and I'm a fashion designer and an artist.
Why are you here on Survivor?
I'm here on Survivor because this has been literally a lifelong dream of mine. You know, I started watching the show back when it started when I was 4 years old at the time, and I never stopped watching it. I never missed a season or an episode. I mean, this has been like a lifelong thing for me. And, I grew up and evolved with Survivor as Survivor grew and changed along with me. And so, I mean, this is something I've wanted to do since I was a kid. I can't believe it's here now. It's surreal that it's actually come into fruition. But I'm so excited. I'm so prepared. I mean, I have like all of the information you could possibly want to go into this game just because, I've just watched and rewatched the show so much. But yeah, that is why I want to play.
What's your history with watching Survivor?
So I started watching it with my family when I was little. We'd make like a big deal out of it. We'd have our weekly routine where we all gather together, stay up a little extra late from before school, and we'd all watch as a family. And that was really special for me growing up as a kid, like before my parents got divorced at an early age. Like that was really the most special memory for me growing up, is being all together as a family watching Survivor. So it really holds that those values of family and of being a whole single unit. And it was just something that like was a constant for me, even when my parents did get divorced and I started moving a lot and things started changing for me. It became that constant in my life, that thing I could look forward to, that I could escape into. And so that it's always been so special to me. And then as I got older, I continued watching it, and then I started, participating in a fantasy league with my brothers and their friends who are like huge. We're all huge fans of the show. So we've been doing fantasy leagues for the last couple of years. Me and my brothers still uphold the tradition of like doing like a big feast for Survivor finales, which is what we did when we were kids. And, we all auditioned together. So it's been like a real like family experience for me as, growing up and as a kid. And yeah, and now I get to play, so it's like all come full circle.
Potato.
Yeah. So it's a real family affair for Cassidy. And look, there are certainly people that say, including in this season, right, I grew up watching it with my family. It's a staple every Wednesday/Thursday night. This may be the first, though, I've heard, Rob, of American Idol style. We all audition for the show together. I don't know if they were banking on some sort of Blood versus Water 3, or if it's just like, hey, it triples or quadruples the chances of us getting on the show and representing our last name.
Somebody will get in. Sure.
It's just odd to think about, though. Like, imagine them all going to an open call. I don't know if this is something that usually happens, right? Where it's like, hi, I'm Cassidy Clark, blah, blah, blah. They do their interview, and then it's like, hi, I'm Kurt Clark. I don't know why that's the first name that came to mind for me. But it's like, wait a minute, are you related to that last person? And does that help or hurt their impression in the big, casting Rolodex if they are related to another person who's auditioning?
And it's interesting because I feel like that Survivor would probably not ever do something like this, but Big Brother definitely would. Of wouldn't that be interesting in a Survivor season if like somebody and their relative was on another tribe? Like, would it come up? Like, it would be very fun, I think, to happen a season, but it's just like not the kind of thing, for whatever reason, Survivor has ever been interested in doing.
Yeah, the closest we've gotten is more the incidental stuff, right? Like the Allie and Patrick from season 35 of like, okay, they know each other. But I agree. I think that's distinctly different from they're related. They have a relationship outside of the game. I think perhaps unlike Big Brother, Survivor does try to be a bit more fair in that casting, right? Of like, let's try to create a group of perfect strangers to the best of our ability, with the exception of something like an Allie and a Patrick. But I agree. That would be really interesting, of like undercover Blood versus Water, where it's a Blood versus Water season, but like only the pair knows that they're the only pair in the game, right? They only assume that, okay, I only have one relative and everyone else is paired off.
Or do you make it they're all pairs? Do you tell them all they're the only one?
That's what I'm saying, right? It's like, okay, Cassidy and Kurt, you guys are playing, but you're the only pair, and you have to make sure you get to the end without anybody noticing. But really, all the other 8 couples have been told this as well.
And maybe they felt like, okay, we'll apply for Survivor together. Like, worst case scenario is they'll put us on The Amazing Race.
Yeah, listen, we were talking about people jockeying for The Amazing Race on other reality shows. So, especially with Jesse Tannenbaum casting all 3 shows, people are looking to
just get in the door.
Exactly, get your foot in the door, because then that'll open multitudinous other doors within CBS reality.
Okay. All right. Let's get back to Cassidy.
Give me one Survivor winner and one non-winner who you identify with the most.
Yeah, so I can give you two actually that from the same season just to
Okay.
make it easy. But so there was one winner from the season of David versus Goliath, who Nick Wilson. The reason I feel so connected to him is I picked him for my draft pick, and that was the only Survivor Fantasy League season that I've won. And I remember messaging him on Instagram and being like, oh, like I picked you for my, Survivor draft. I hope you win. And he was like, oh, I hope so. Like, we'll see. And it was just so epic because his win at the end, like how he just, like everything that he had to go through to get to where he was. And then him like winning all those immunities in a row because he was like on the chopping block every time, like making it all the way to the finale that way was just so impressive. It was such a fun season finale to watch. And also I know that he talked about his mother struggling from drug addiction. I could be wrong, but I think she ended up passing away from like an overdose or something similar. And that's what happened to my sister. So I really felt for him, like in those moments when he was talking about it, because I've also gone through that loss, And so that also connected me to him. And then from the same season, Christian Hubicki, who didn't win, but like I loved him so much. He was just such a fun character to watch. And he just had such a kind, sweet heart, but he was also just so funny and intelligent. He really was just like such a well-rounded person for me. And I felt connected to him too, just because of, he's just a really awesome person. I think most people would agree with that.
What's your favorite moment in
Yes.
I agree with that. Yeah, I definitely co-sign that statement about Christian Hubicki being very kind and funny.
Yeah. I'll fight somebody who says he's not.
What do you make of the Nick Wilson response of the Instagram DM of like, oh, I picked you in your draft, hope you win. And he's like, yeah, I know I've already won. How do I respond to this without giving anything away?
Yeah. Not a situation that I would have any experience in dealing with. So, yeah, I think that maybe like you probably just want to do like a thumbs up.
Like, cool. Nice to
Yeah.
meet you. See you on the beach.
Yeah. Like, should be a fun season.
Yeah, exactly. But then that's really fun because then it very much skews into like, oh god, he got voted out first, which listen, he nearly did. But like still like, oh man, he's just using these generalisms. People are looking into anything and everything from social media in these preseasons as to like how they're gonna do on the island. I think you have to pick your words carefully. Though again, if you have $1 million check basically guaranteed, say whatever the hell you want, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's go back to Cassidy.
What's your favorite moment in Survivor history?
So I'll just keep rolling with the Christian thing. There's one episode where he wins immunity and he's just like talking Jeff's ear off for like 5 or 6 hours. And that to me is like one of the funniest moments that I've seen on Survivor. And I just love that. And then I also love, look, I'm not necessarily picking these moments based off of like strategic gameplay or anything, but they're just ones that really stuck out to me that I'm thinking of right now. But another one was Ty, who's like also one of my favorite players, with his chicken, because I love animals. And so Ty, like having his little chicken as his like best friend, bringing it to tribal council is so hilarious to me. And so those are just moments that really stood out to me that I just love.
What's one life experience you feel has prepared you most for the game?
If I'm allowed to talk about it, I was actually supposed to be on season 41. I went through the whole casting process in person, and I got picked to be on the season. And I was actually a week away from leaving in 2020 before the pandemic hit. And then once the pandemic hit and everything got shut down, eventually they ended up reworking the cast, and I was taken off of it. And I didn't know if I was going to have another chance to play. And I actually had to like re-audition and send in another video, go through the whole process again to even get back my spot back here. And so going through that, like having my dream right there, like so close, and then having it like, taken away, and having it really just like, it was a huge blow. It was devastating, but I knew that like I was meant to play this game, and that if I wanted to have that shot again, like I need to heal from this. I needed to reframe my thinking, and I needed to get ready to like get my spot back on the show. And so having that experience, I think really like made me work 10 times harder. And it made me just make sure that I was way more prepared coming in the second time, because like when I got my spot back, I was like, this is my second chance. And like, I don't like, that is so rare to be able to get that opportunity again. And so I knew that like I wanted to come into this game as prepared as I could possibly be. And just having my past and what happened and this like roller coaster ride for the last 3 years, that really like I think prepared me the most for, going and playing on the show now in this time in my life.
Potato. Mike, do we have any sense of, at this point, what the March 2020 version of the Survivor 41 cast look like based off of the interviews we've done?
We have about, I think, a third of them nailed down. So I know, and people can correct me if there are any additional ones, but I know that Deshaun and Erica were going to be on. I believe that Tori and Zach were going to be on as well. And now Cassidy, spoiler alert, Cassidy will be the only person in this set of interviews, in these interviews in general this season, who will mention that they were supposed to be on Survivor 41. Maybe that was the case with some of these other people and they neglected to mention it for fear of like, I don't know, getting in trouble. I know that Janine, I think, allegedly was a alternate for either like 41 or 42. But yeah, Rob, this might be the makings of an eventual Brain Steel season, the biggest Survivor what if ever.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know. And I guess, how many people will we see in the future? How many people like got cut and they like missed their shot and they are never going to be on the show? Like, I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. What's also interesting is of all those names I listed off, they all are playing on blue tribes over the course of this season.
Oh, that's how they let us know.
Yeah, that's the little like at home, mole-esque clue of, okay, well, the people on blue tribes, they were the ones that were supposed to be, and they were feeling really blue in 2020, but now they're getting a second chance to come back. Do you think she should have had to reapply? I've seen a little bit of stuff about this, about like whether they should have, when they were starting things back up, just like go back immediately to the 18 people that they had already picked and ask them to come back, or do you think they should have made them re-audition like they did with Cassidy?
I mean, I think re-auditioning is tough. I can understand that they want to sort of like rejigger like what they have, but this does seem like a little extreme unless they like radically change the I know they did a radical change of like what they were looking for in a CBS reality cast, but I feel like that the actual process of applying is the same.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll hear from some of those other people who are listening to this as to like whether they also had to re-audition. Maybe Cassidy had also just gone through some life changes as well. Like
Yeah.
I know, like if someone applies in season 2 and then you get accepted for like season 18, I know the casting usually contacts you, right? And it's like, hey, can you like resend a video just so we can like get a better sense as to who you are now?
The only thing I can think of is that her story sounds like that she went to an open call and that maybe they were doing the casting. Maybe there is no open call anymore and that they are now only seeing people like who send in a like video in the traditional means. And so maybe she needed to submit via like the video submission as opposed to the open call audition.
What do you think about her sort of approaching this as a quote unquote second chance, even though it is actually a first chance, just a second attempt at it?
Yeah. Well, Jeff always says, like, play like it's your second time.
Yeah. And I think she truly does have that attitude, which might work for or against the fact that people are also playing for the first time. I also want to flag the fact that one of the moments she does mention as her favorite is indeed the saga of Ty and Mark the Chicken. Rob, early favorite for the Sia Award now, based on Cassidy's answer?
I don't know. I think that Sia has kind of changed her rubric of what she's looking for. I do not think that having some sort of like kindness to animals is necessarily like what she's going for. I'm trying to think of the last person she gave money to that was like a big part of their story.
Yeah, I mean, that was so 2016, right? You try to copy Ty. I guess that's the thing, is that you can't mimic previous Sia recipients. It's just like being a Survivor winner, right? You can't play like a previous winner because that's only not inherently yourself. It'll allow you to be clocked early by other people. You truly have to just be yourself and hope that that catches the veiled eyes of one Sia to get the money in the end.
Yeah. I mean, Sia, she wants you to entertain her. And she's looking for, if people had like some sort of like traumatic experience. Those seems like the two things that she's going for these days.
Well, I mean, Cassie does have that tragedy, as she mentions, and Survivor being a constant for her to get through things like her parents' divorce, losing her sister to addiction. What I do find interesting, Rob, is that someone will talk about not this time, but next time, also has a family history with loss through addiction. And I do wonder if we get into a merge scenario where they both are there, that is something much like we saw with Shannon and Liana, right? Who like meet each other because of their shared backgrounds, instantly form this really, really close bond. If
Mhm.
that is something that could be brewing on the horizon, should these two people make it to a merge scenario.
Yeah, we will have to see. All right, let's get back to Cassidy.
What excites you the most about the new era of Survivor?
Ooh, it's interesting because I mean, now it seems nothing comes without a price attached. And so, in the past, people used to be able to like rely on finding immunity idols and things like that to save themselves in the game. But now, like, there are risks associated with everything. If you find an idol, it's like a beware advantage. You lose your vote, which is so crucial in the early, especially the early stage of the game, and especially on a smaller tribe. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's a little scary as well, but it's also exciting, and just knowing that the game is constantly changing and it's kind of refreshed every season, it really allows you to like go into it and be surprised and be excited. And I'm pumped up for that, and this fast gameplay. I think I'm a player who can really, adapt and be extremely flexible in this type of environment. And so going into like a fast-paced game, like I feel really ready for that. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what happens.
What do you think people will perceive you as?
So I think that just because of my personality, like I'm a very bubbly, like warm person. I like to make jokes. I like to just like have a good time. But I also have a serious side to me, and I think I'm intelligent. I hope so. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I just really feel like I'm a really well-rounded person as far as like social skills, intelligence, and my physical strength. I really trained hard to be here. But I think just from my outer appearance and my personality, people may not really perceive those things about me as much. And that is something that I plan to use to my advantage because, I mean, when you're in like under a big spotlight all the time and people see you as a major threat from the beginning, like it's really hard to play a good game from that place. So going in and being underestimated is actually what I hope happens, because then I'll be able to like, pull the strings from the shadows and puppet these bigger moves without, so much detection or eyes on me. And so I really hope honestly that they underestimate me, because then they won't know it's coming.
What type of player are you looking for in an alliance?
I do want somebody that I connect deeply with. I think that is really important in an ally, because having that like initial bond, I think really kind of steers people more towards being loyal rather than being, disloyal towards you. So I really want to find like genuine connection with somebody. I want somebody who is not going to make super rash, decisions, who's not just going to be trying to like do a million things at once, talk to a million people. I want somebody who is able to like step back and really take calculated risks and think things through before. And I want somebody who will work with me throughout every stage and who will, come to me about any decision instead of, making moves behind my back. Obviously, that's really important. And I honestly really hope to find somebody early in the game that I can like play a good portion of the game with. I think that having that ally is really beneficial in the game. So.
What's the one thing you told yourself you wouldn't do in this game?
Let's see. There's a couple things, but I think that one thing I told myself that I would not do is going into it. I think it's really important to make forge relationships and build alliances really quickly. I think people make the mistake of going in and just like waiting until immunity or until you lose immunity and you're going to tribal council to really start like making plans and doing all that. But I think it's so important to go in and make as many connections as you can from the get-go. So I told myself going in, I was not gonna like sit back and wait around for somebody to come up to me and to try to make alliance with me. Like I was going to go to each and every single person, talk to them, find some sort of connection, and really be able to like decide and have as much information as I can about these people to make my decision about who I want to be in an alliance with. And honestly, just saying yes to everybody at the beginning anyways, and then I can kind of figure out from there where I want to go. But I also don't want to go in immediately like going out for myself or looking for idols or looking sketchy. I really want to look as though I'm kind of taking it a little slower, but socially I won't be.
Okay,
And that
Mike.
is Cassidy.
That's Cassidy. Interesting. I think we got a lot about why she got into Survivor, why Survivor is important to her. I feel like that we didn't really get into what type of player she's going to be until right at the end. She wants to be, she's hoping to be underestimated. She's planning to be social. It sounds like she doesn't want to make a lot of waves in the first half of the game and then is hoping to be somebody who can sort of like emerge like later on in the game. Although that being said, in the new era of Survivor, that's kind of been the blueprint for a victory.
Right. It's this idea of like the two winner stories we've essentially had so far, right? Is like don't go to tribal council a lot, if at all, in the pre-merge, and then post-merge, allow all the big threats to take each other out. You make like the one or two calculated moves that you need to in the middle merge to set yourself up well for the end game, and then sweep it up at the end. And so if Cassidy is able to continue on to that, I mean, she seems, from what she outlined, it seems like she's very clinical right now with how she intends to do things. No, I will say, I think she has a good head for what's happening. The one thing that does stick out to me is in that last intro you mentioned, she said, I'm not going to sit back and wait for somebody to come up to me and start making alliances. Now, that is all well and good. I could understand, the lack of passiveness there. But I also think there's a difference between that and like being full Zayn Knight, like, hey, you're my alliance, you're in my alliance, you're in my alliance. I don't think she's vocalizing that, but I could also see a possible universe where she's like, all right, got to hit the ground running, got to start making connections. And in these new era where tribes are so small and so transparent, people can really easily see that. And if they clock it as something that isn't authentic, that is something that I feel like could put her in trouble.
Yeah. Mike, what else from her bio did you think was interesting?
Yeah, so Cassie mentions like her physicality, despite being a smaller
Okay.
woman. In her favorite hobby, she does talk about how she likes skating and boxing. And
Oh,
she says, why do you think you can be the sole survivor? I think I've got the sweet spot in all the right places. I'm physically fit and competitive. I will be an asset to my tribe, but my smaller stature will make me appear non-threatening. And so, listen, I don't want to use the P word, but Parvati did once upon a time. I think her
okay.
first season, right?
Okay.
Ready to give this podcast an explicit rating. Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe Parvati in Cook Islands, right? Was she not like charity boxer was her career?
I don't think it was charity boxing. I think it was some other, it was like fitness boxing or model boxing, I think it was.
Model boxing, yeah. So maybe Cassie will that will prove to be a model way to play this game. So like she certainly has
Which I
that
think
fit.
Parvati has said, like, I think I did that one time. They just like they go for like the most salacious job title they could give you.
Well, at least Cassidy at this part is like actively pursuing it as a hobby, which means that she does have that amount of cardio that could help in some of these challenges. Where
Yeah.
even if Coco does end up going to these tribal council or to a lot of these tribal councils, if she is not sticking out from like a strategic or a social perspective, I could see her as okay, we've got to keep her around. We've got to make sure that like she's helping us in the challenges right now because she could be one of the only hopes that we have considering her physical background.
Okay. Anything
Another
else
thing,
on good?
yeah, another thing I want to bring up. So Cassidy is very spiritual. She is
Oh.
all about this idea of manifesting. She says she is super in tune with the universe, with the energy, and how other people might not believe in this idea of putting something out there, but she wants to. And but perhaps Rob to talk a bit about her mischievousness that she was sort of hinting at under the behind the scenes. She says she does the whole Kim Spradlin routine on herself. Her spirit animal is the fox.
Okay. All right. So Eddie Fox?
Could be. Is she going to open a chicken bar in honor of her favorite player, Tai Trang?
Yeah. Okay. If she's a sly fox, that'll be good for her this season.
Yeah, that's what she said. She basically says, like, she's clever. She can kind of sneak her way around. Have you ever given any thought to what your spirit animal is?
Not once.
Really? I feel like that's like a go-to question that people ask just in general to, I don't know, pass the time in
Hmm.
conversations.
Normally, I like things like that, but like, what animal am I like? None.
I think I'd be a goose.
So what about the goose, Mike? What do you see in the goose?
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just everything goose I see in myself. I look in a mirror, I see a goose.
Wow. Okay.
So
We
yeah,
should explore that sometime. Yeah.
and we'll see. Well, it's interesting that Cassidy says that she fancies herself the fox, considering how much she loves Ty and Mark the chicken. Foxes, memorably when they get in the
Fox in
hen
the hen
house,
house.
yeah,
Yeah.
usually not a good story. So maybe that Sia money is not guaranteed.
Probably not. Okay. Mike, anything else on Cassidy?
No, I think that she is someone who is willing to like surrender herself to the moment, like we said before, treating this as a second chance. Well, I think we'll put a pin in her, a bobby pin, perhaps, considering her fashion career.
Sure.
See, based on the rest of this tribe, how she'll fit in. But I think my initial impression is I do think she is someone that could do what she's talking about of like riding the pre-merge as like a very solid person in the challenges, someone who is working a lot of connections, though not overtly, and then is able to find her opportune moments playing rather aggressively in the post-merge. Again, you talked about that winner blueprint with Erica and Marianne. If there is, I think, one person for me in this cast who could fit that mold, it may be Cassidy for me.
I could see it.